Hey everybody, it says we're live and I'm just going to trust it. Thank you for tuning into another Self-Publishing Insiders with Draft to Digital. I'm coming at you from the beautiful Broadmoor Hotel in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And to my right and below, we got our usual motley crew. Go ahead and introduce yourself, guys.
Go ahead, Mark.
All right. This is Mark Leslie Lefebvre. I'm coming to you from the Waterloo, Ontario office of Draft to Digital with my good friend Barnaby Bones. He's just photobombing me here.
Yes.
I'm coming from the ice wonderland of Oklahoma City right now. So if I disappear, it's because my power has suddenly gone out. It's been crazy the last few days, but so far so good this morning.
Yeah. You guys, so there's been like this cold snap in a couple of places. That's not really why we're in the hotel instead of the van, but I wish we had been in the hotel because it was like 2 degrees. I was telling Mark earlier, and that led to some things we won't discuss, some problems we won't discuss. But that being that cold in the van was not fun. And I know you guys are having the same sort of issues with power lines snapping, tree limbs falling, that sort of thing. It's just bizarre.
You know, I think most people get an RV to go to the places where the weather is nice, and you chose to go where the weather is even worse.
There is a little bit of method to our madness in that, but I do admit that I wish we had rethought that. So okay, well, one of the things we were going to talk about today, among other things, is we actually have a brand new feature we're going to be rolling out, and so I want to discuss that a little bit. Before I jump into it, before we start talking about that stuff, is there anything else we want to cover? Any announcements or anything that we want to get to?
Well, I'm sure people are going to be asking about Barnes & Noble, and they are still having technical problems.
Yeah.
They were hacked, and they have been trying to recover from that for about 2 weeks, maybe a little bit longer than that now. So we are talking to them nearly daily, trying to get everything expedited as soon as possible, but they are just so backed up.
Yeah. And this is not just affecting Draft to Digital authors. I mean, this is even the folks who are going direct to Barnes & Noble are experiencing.
Yeah, traditional publishers, direct authors. It's just a huge mess.
Yeah.
Yes, that's been interesting. And what I've been noticing is that there seem to be a lot of these little attacks like this going around. So hopefully this doesn't become a trend in the publishing industry. So. Or
it's
elsewhere.
definitely something like affecting like hospitals, small townships are being hacked. It just goes to show the importance of computer security and making sure you're not reusing the same passwords, using things like two-factor authentication if it's available.
Is that not
never clicking links that you don't know?
The two-factor authentication that's there for our authors?
We do actually.
We do have two-factor.
Yeah.
What we call 2FA. Because everything we do has to be 3 letters with a 2 in it. Draft to Digital 2FA. Yes, you can actually turn that on your author account. So if you are a Draft to Digital author, you would go to your account page, and I forget I can look up the actual URL or where you're going, unless one of you guys remembers off the top of your head. I always have to double check things like that.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
It's in the My Account settings.
Yes.
I wonder if Alyssa could kindly throw a screenshot or something in the comments.
It'll be, and I'll drop this URL into it. But if you go to drafttodigital.com, log in, and you click on account, you'll go to account settings, and there is like the third thing down there is to enable 2FA. So that'll allow you to, it requires you to authenticate. So they can either send you a text message or an email, and you would use the code. You're probably familiar with this kind of thing because a lot of services are doing this now. I'm going to drop this in the comments, that URL. So if you are logged into your Draft to Digital account, you can click on that URL and it goes straight to that page. So
one thing to keep in mind is right now it does not work with reporting softwares like Book Tracker or like Book Report, I believe is one of them.
Yeah.
So we are working with them to make it where you can still have two-factor authentication and still work with those services, but it's a work in progress. So for right now, like don't use two-factor if you're using one of those services.
But don't tell anybody you're not using it.
That's true. Never tell people you're not using them.
why don't we pop? I know we want. There's definitely a topic coming up we want to talk about, but we got some questions popping into the comments. So why don't we pop some of those up and address them? And the first is from No GMOs. I support this. Since Spanish is the second most popular language spoken, how come you don't distribute Spanish books to Spanish booksellers? You seem to have German, French, and Italian covered, but not Spanish. Ay, ay, ay. Wait.
We are always looking to expand into like other languages and other bookstores. Frequently, we found with some of the international booksellers that they their systems aren't set up to work as quickly as we need because Amazon kind of sets a very fast pace. We do work with 24 Symbols, which is really focused on the Spanish market. It's a subscription service. But we are always interested, and if you let us know of any bookstores you want us to look into, there's always ones we haven't heard of. There's some that we've heard of and talked to, but just some, like sometimes they're just stuck in negotiations. And so we love getting it everywhere. We know places like Kobo have some partnerships that get you into some of the Mexican bookstores and Spanish bookstores. But it's definitely something we're interested in doing more with.
By the way, Mark, everyone is enjoying your choice of attire. So
yeah, Sky said I had to show up in costume, so I just wanted to play with her initially by being in my civvies.
Exactly. So by the way, earlier I shared this in the comments, but in case I don't know why it popped up in your author email. That's interesting. So draftdigital.com/account/settings. So if you need to get to that, you can. Okay, so here's a question. It just says promotions tab. So I'm guessing they want us to describe what that is and how it works. This is a nifty tool, by the way. Anybody want to field it, or you?
Can I go?
Yeah, you go.
I mean, we just saw Alyssa had just created that amazing graphic in conjunction with Kara, and to help authors understand the promotions tool. And I think, Kevin, you've got a forthcoming blog post that's going to include that. But this is an amazing tool because when you schedule a promotion with BookBub or Written Word Media or any of those other places where you want to have your book change at midnight, you can go ahead and set it ahead of time. In the promotions tab, you can actually do multiple different promos at the same time. You can name them so you know what it is, like, Craig's October Deadpool promo or whatever he's doing there, and to have it flip to 99 cents and then flip back to whatever your price is or however you plan on doing the promo. And we send the files to the retailers the same way that the big publishers send files to the retailers. So they'll get an Onyx file with that data ahead of time, meaning they have the price change in their system ahead of time, and at midnight local time, it'll flip. Unlike on Amazon, where you're forced to have to go in and do it just an hour or two before you want it to change, and the timing's never accurate. So that's one of the huge benefits of the tool. I call it the set it and forget it. Well, not forget it, but set it and you don't have to worry about it. So if you're doing like a promo on Thanksgiving weekend and you're busy with the turkey and all the fun stuff or the Black Friday shopping, your book's going to drop to 99 cents when you planned on doing it. The other thing that I'm excited about is some plans we have for the promotions tab, which may be related to some of the work that Kara's been doing, working with our retail partners and library partners, eventually incorporating some of that there so it's easy for you guys to find those other promos that we're doing in conjunction with Kobo, with Apple, with Overdrive, etc.
One of the things I really like about the promotions tab, when you set up a promotion, you can name the promotions. So if you have multiple promotions going on, like at one point I had a BookBub, I had a promotion through Newsletter Swap. I feel like I have to duck under the little Draft Digital banner. But I had multiple promotions going on, and they were kind of stacked, and I was able to see which one was which, who this was for. One of them actually got canceled, so I was able to go find that and turn the price change off. So very handy tool. I use it a lot, actually, more than I anticipated. Speaking of Sky has a question. When's the co-author payment feature coming?
It is in beta right now, and so I think we went ahead and got that link available.
Let me pop that up.
So at Nink this year, we announced they were kind of a smaller audience due to COVID, but got some of the first people in the beta. Mark has been an active participant in the alpha/beta phases
That's
of
the
this.
wrong one. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're just testing it now. You can sign up the link that Kevin just shared for the beta, and we are pulling in a couple of people a week and setting up their accounts to do this. It's going great. We've already been doing some payment splitting features for some of the authors that had Kindle Worlds back in the day, and so we have experience with it and the taxes. Now we're just figuring out how to make it all scale and let everyone take advantage of that. And it's really cool. Like, you can use it to work with other authors. You could use it like if you wanted to, like if you found like a graphic designer or cover designer that would work with you on it, you could split royalties with them for a while if you can't afford to pay upfront. Just the opportunities of what you can use this feature for are just really cool.
Yeah. Just Mark and I actually have a little box set of a couple of our books out there, so we're kind of playing around with it. I think it's even sold some copies.
We've actually, yeah, it was just to test the system. It was kind of like, and people started buying it. Oh well, they're enjoying our fiction. I actually have an anthology coming out at the end of November that I have 16 contributors, and everyone's getting a cut of the pie when that releases. And so I have it up for pre-order, assetless pre-order, which you can do for many of our downstream vendors, and it's been really, really cool to set that up and to go in and what I like about it from the publisher or editor standpoint is I can see who has agreed to the terms, who has accepted the terms. It's really handy in the dashboard. And I really think, for me in particular, one of the things I love about this feature is I'm Canadian. So I have I just finished a W80N form for Findaway Voices. I know on Draft to Digital and Amazon, you have to fill those out every once in a while so you don't get the 30% withholding rate if you're not American. Right. If you're in a country like Canada, that's part of the treaty. And when I get the money in US dollars, I have to exchange it to Canadian, and you always lose a little bit of money because the banks get some. And then if I were to pay the American contributors or partners that I'm working with, then I have to translate it again, where I lose a little bit more money in paying them back. But what I love about this is Draft to Digital takes care of paying them. All they have to have is a Draft to Digital account and the ability to get paid. I get paid, they all get paid. None of this back and forth. I don't have that hassle and headache. I think it's a really, really great collaborative thing, and I'm just so proud of the people at Draft to Digital, the people way smarter than me who make this happen, who built the tools, and I'm just so excited for this release.
Yes, they made it super easy, like all of our other tools. So it's really, really, this is something that me and Mark and Kevin, like everyone's wanted for a long time.
Right.
It was kind of technically challenging, and just like the tax stuff is always crazy, but we've been doing this for about 8 years now of handling taxes like worldwide, and we've gotten really good at it.
Yeah, and I was going to mention that everyone who participates, you go through the same process as you would to set up a standard D2D account. You fill out a tax interview. So everything is very streamlined, very automated. It's really been interesting to see it unfold, because this was something that was probably one of our most requested features. People have been very excited about it. Let's see. Let's roll on down. And that URL, by the way, that's on screen, I did share that in the comments, so you should be able to just click on through. Let's see. We got people saying hello. We got Trollbuster says part 1. So let's look for part 2 after this. Hi, I'm absolutely new to this kind of thing. I recently signed up for a new D2D account and uploaded my first book in Word file. It's a book in an Indic language with lots of pictures, etc. So not a question there, but I mean, do we foresee any challenges or difficulties for this author with the?
Is part 2 the question?
I'm going to look for it, and we'll post. There it is, part 2. Unfortunately, the layout, formatting, pictures, everything got messed up. I tried this with PDF too. Same thing happened. What can I do?
Yeah. Sounds like it's a picture book, right? Mostly.
Yeah, like anything with pictures is a little bit harder. There are different formats that are meant to account for pictures, because you got to remember with ebooks, they are made to be reflowable. And so in general, like with fiction, the words can be wherever. And that's because people might be reading on their phone, or they might be reading on their iPad or their computer. And so the words are going to kind of move around depending on what screen they're looking at it on. With pictures, like you want them to have certain aspect ratios and things like that. So it is much more difficult. And that's really the only case where we recommend people look into an actual person that does book layouts. You can use some other tools to make picture books. Unfortunately, they're generally specific to a certain retailer. Like Amazon has some tools to make a picture book, but it only works on Amazon. Apple's got a tool, but it only works on Apple. And so what you want is a fixed layout book, and people have to do that in some of the more expensive tools like InDesign.
Yeah. So it's worthwhile to go find. You can find someone who would handle the layout part of that for relatively inexpensive on sites like Fiverr.com, which we don't typically recommend, but wouldn't recommend them for things like a book cover or something along those lines. But for getting your book into the layout, there's plenty of people on that site who would be willing to do it for fairly cheap. So that's a good source.
Yeah. And one thing to mention, because we do have, there's a lot of confusion over the PDF format. People frequently will bring us a PDF. I don't think any of the major retailers will use PDF. Like they don't accept it. PDF is only meant for print format. A lot of people still do read PDFs on their devices as like digital files, but it's a format that doesn't work on any e-readers. It's just meant to, I guess some of them will open PDF, but none of the bookstores sell the PDF format. What you need is a Mobi file for Amazon. Although they're kind of moving over to EPUB, and EPUB has become the industry standard.
Yeah. So we might have to parse this one a little, and John, you may have to add some detail in the comments, but for book metadata, how do you get the search terms to record and get prioritized? Right now, I type in keywords and nothing sticks. This may be a technical issue that I need to reach out to customer support over.
Yeah, that sounds like a browser issue more than because they should just stick.
Could be a JavaScript thing enabler.
Yeah. That's kind of how I'm interpreting the question. I mean, it could also be like if you're talking about like the retailers, not like the book not coming up. Not all the retailers use the keywords. We send the keywords everywhere, but not all of them make use of them, or they might make use of them for. Like Amazon uses them to figure out like certain categories, but then the keywords don't really do anything in their search engine outside of getting it into the right category.
Yeah.
I know you can prioritize by dragging. There's the little boxes over on the left. So when you put in all your keywords and you see the list, if you have a really long list, do prioritize, drag the ones that are the most important to the top, because some retailers kind of stop after a certain number, right? So you want like the first 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 to be the most prominent.
Yeah, just for a good rule of thumb is to treat it as the first one on the list is the most important, and the second is the second most, etc. Because there are actually retailers that do prioritize that way. I went ahead and put this in the comments as well, but on screen you'll see if you do have a technical support question like that, reach out to us at support@drafteddigital.com, where real live humans in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma will answer your question in perfect English.
We're totally not robots.
Not yet. We're working on it. Okay, so let's see. This is just more of a general comment, and I like the name, Fat Author. I'm interested in Draft Digital. I've only ever been exclusive to Amazon, but Amazon has been getting on my nerves lately. We can relate, Fat Author.
we hear that a lot.
Yeah. Here's one from Lori via Facebook. I have a question. How does a self-published author advertise for free due to no money? There's actually a lot of ways you can get some free exposure. One of them is doing like newsletter swaps and exchanges have been a great way for people to get their book out there. I actually always recommend that you do that to grow your mailing list. But even if you're just trying to sell a few copies of your book, they can be very handy, and they don't necessarily cost anything. If you can find a group of authors willing to do that, you can certainly join in. One resource for that does cost something per month, but BookFunnel at bookfunnel.com actually does have this little promotions thing where you can sign up to say, my book fits these categories, and they'll email you. And I get probably 3 or 4 emails a day about upcoming promotions with newsletter swaps. So there's also a tool. Well, if money is a concern, if you can come up with some kind of budget, there are some resources out there like Bargain Booksy and Free Booksy. They do have a fee, but it's usually fairly reasonable. So, and it can usually lead to maybe a few 50 clicks or so. If people buy your book, it's not usually a ton of traffic, but it's a good way to kind of get the ball rolling. So, you guys have any other free ideas?
Don't you have a blog post that kind of goes over this stuff?
Yeah.
You're gonna make me go find a blog post.
Well,
if not, that would make a great blog post. But I feel like you've done
there
one.
is a blog post on
I do
marketing
have
on the page,
Author Marketing 101, I think was, and I'll try to find that. It's like a 3-part blog post that gives you.
So, while he's looking for the blog post to share, Lori, one of the things that works really, really well, I come from a small town initially. Now, I'm not in a small town, but the small town is really, really supportive. And what I've found as an author is leverage the smaller the community, the better. Define yourself as a big fish in a small pool. Most people will want to have written a book. Most people will not have written a book. I've sent press releases out to local media, local radio, local television stations, local newspapers. And I've been really, really lucky because if the angle is right, local author during COVID releases ebook to 190 countries using a service in Oklahoma. You're suddenly an international author. Even if you've only sold a few copies, you can say, this author has sold in 6 different countries or had downloads in 6 countries. That's one of the things that can work really, really well, because I've found the smaller the community, the more they get behind you. And that sometimes that little extra exposure doesn't cost you anything other than time. But what I always do is I always look for a local hook. One of the last ones that got me some good exposure was I talked about how the place where I grew up inspired elements of my latest novel. And that was an amazing experience where I got television, radio, and newspaper. I don't always get all of those things, but I find I have way more luck in a smaller town than I do in the big city. So It's free, right? And all it is reaching out to the local free weekly newspaper that gets dropped off that you probably throw in your recycle bin. It's reaching out to your local church group if they have a newsletter. Maybe it's a high school alumni group. Any of those little things, because there may be someone who goes, "Wow, this has relevance to me." And it could be by the topic or the fact that you're local.
Yeah.
I would say participate in communities where you think your readers will be. Yeah. I've seen a lot of both traditional and self-published authors participate like in Reddit. This is like subreddits for sci-fi and fantasy. And I don't mean go there and try to sell your book, but like actually just be a part of the community. And then every once in a while, if you run a sale and you let them know, people are going to, accept you as part of the group. They're going to know that you like the same things they like, and that your books probably are going to be about the things they like. And I've seen people get sales through that.
One more thing you can try, by the way, is make sure you are asking people you're already connected to share that you have a book. Especially, and you should have a mailing list. That's our #1 recommended marketing tool. And you can get a free mailing list. You can set it up and start inviting people onto it. But, start with friends and family and just say, hey, look, help me out. You're my family. You're my friends. Could you please share this with, everyone and let them know that I have a book available. And you'll start seeing some traction there. So people forget to ask. Data. I'm going to leave it at that. It says, hello, everyone. I'm Joanna. Will we be able to advertise, paid advertising as an option?
So Draft to Digital doesn't have any paid advertising, and the merchandising, like the work we do with retailers on promotions, are all free. So through us, like the only money we make is when we help you sell a book. So being a part of that, and we kind of did that on purpose. As far as there are a lot of other services out there, I think probably the best bang for your buck generally ends up being BookBub, like which you apply for their daily feature deals. generally they're going to do the most good, and that's where I would spend money if you have that amount. But they're kind of pricey because everyone wants them, and you have to apply. I know people that applied like 50 times to get their first one, so it is competitive. After that, like Amazon ads and Facebook ads seem to be the most effective things for indie authors. I would, if you only have one book, I wouldn't spend a lot of money trying to advertise one book through those means. But the return on investment, if you've got like a book in a series, and so you're advertising one book, but they're probably going to buy 3 or 4 books, it can really make sense.
Can I also put in a good word for our friend David Gogren? His book on BookBub ads is phenomenal. And I mean, we've interviewed him on previous episodes of this podcast / YouTube, Facebook channel, but you can find free interviews with him where he shared tips on how to do BookBub ads. This is not a featured deal, but an ad where you can just maybe test it out for $5 and actually show that ad beyond just Amazon to all other platforms. And
he also has a new YouTube channel where he's doing a lot of great content, and you get to see his crazy beard.
Yes, which just gets longer and longer. Eventually, it's just going to take over his entire body. Okay, I was going to pop up his. You can find it. I didn't find it immediately. I think I'm searching wrong. But we do have. If you go to youtube.com/draftedigital, you'll be able to search for our interview with David Gogren. He does talk about BookBub ads, which, by the way, are different from the BookBub feature deals. They're far less. There's no competition to get them. First of all, it's a pay-to-play service. They've been very effective. He's got a whole book on the subject, and I do recommend it. Our one of our fellows, Nick Thacker, also has a book on the subject, so you might want to check that out as well. Okay, so Craig Price asks, with Google Books' recent policy changes, are you considering bringing them back to D2D?
We would love to. Like the problem isn't us.
This problem is not us.
Yeah. If they change the way they do it, sure, that would be a feasible option. But the way it works now, it is not a feasible system. It's not scalable, and it's not something we can properly support you guys the way we need to support you guys.
One of the things that we try to make clear to folks, like we actually vet the retailers as much as we vet the authors in their books. Just like our retailers have certain guidelines and rules that we can't allow the authors to violate. It's just their policy, and we can't allow them to violate. So we check your books. We check to make sure everything's in compliance. We do the same thing on your behalf with the retailers. So if a retailer has a bad history, well, I'm not saying Google does, but if there's quirky things that they do that just don't gel well with how we like to treat our authors, we won't use them. We had Google Play for quite some time, and I don't know, about a year actually, not a great deal of time, but in that time there was just always ups and downs about how we interacted with them, and it just got to a point where we thought it wasn't a good fit for our authors. So as soon as we can figure out a way to make it a good fit, we'll definitely bring them back.
They're definitely listening to the community. They're making really good positive changes that puts them in line with every other digital book retailer after 7 or 8 years of them trying to do their own thing without success. Let Google know you would like to work with us, because we would love to work with them. We do talk to them from time to time, but there were just some things they wanted that were weird and made the whole process really difficult, and it doesn't need to be.
It doesn't. Let's see. Lori has another question. I have a question. Has anyone ever taken a book you did and you were not happy with killing your character off? What would you all do? So this I think is for me and you, Mark. Unless Dan's secretly writing some books now.
I would do the whole Dallas thing and just that last book was a dream. Yeah. I imagine there's some young people out there that have no clue what I'm talking about, so that makes me happy.
But if you've watched any soap opera, all you have to do is come up with a missing twin, or is the twin that died not the person? All kinds of stuff. So
I had a character. I killed off a character in my last Dan Kotler book, and I got so many angry emails about it. But what I did was I gave them a new headquarters, and I named it for her. So the memorial headquarters, and that seemed to satisfy everybody. Everybody was kind of happy with that. So maybe just remember, the reader has an investment in these characters, just like you do. And when this character does die, there's a grieving process, just like losing somebody in real life. So treat it with some respect, and throw them a little something. Putting that character's name on a building that everyone else uses all the time. So I will open a chapter saying the Danielle Brown Memorial. I forget the name I use. I've got a little list, but that's a good way to handle stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, celebrate the fact that a reader cared so much about a character that they were upset. Like that's a sign of a brilliant writer and a connection you made with the reader. But you give them a prequel story, right? Like look at the Black Widow movie that still hasn't come out, but no, spoiler alert, but she dies in the last Avengers movie.
Hey!
This is a prequel. Come on, it's been out for long enough. But it's a prequel, and so people who love the character get to enjoy the character. So give them, for those, maybe it's a short story, maybe it's something you only give to people who sign up for your newsletter, Lori. And that's something that can appease those dedicated diehard fans and get more of that character they love.
Yeah, if they love a character, you should definitely build some material around that character. Trollbuster had a part 3 to his question or her question. I'm not here to make any decisions for you. Their question. I am trying to convert my book in Word file into HTML5 using Dreamweaver so that it is easier to convert into EPUB. Do you think that's going to work?
Why wouldn't you just use our free conversion?
Use our free conversion.
I doubt it.
I think this was the author that had the picture book, though.
Oh, the picture book, yeah.
It's an EPUB essentially is a lot like HTML code. Yeah. Like when you get down to it. Each service you use like that, or each thing that you're doing, adds in a little bit of code behind the scenes. And the more code there is behind the scenes, the more likely something will break. Really, you want to design the book from the ground up as an EPUB and use tools that are meant to be EPUB tools rather than Dreamweaver is for making websites. So,
Lexi Green posted a useful comment in regards to our conversation earlier about the search, putting the terms, making the terms record. Is my brain no work now? You do have to hit enter after each search term, so it goes from the search term field into the box underneath. So if you're just typing in those terms and not doing that, actually, I think you can also hit the comma, and it adds that keyword. I believe that's our functionality, or maybe I'm just hoping
that's how WordPress works.
That's exactly it. Let's see. Kathy from YouTube asks, you've spoken before about expanding the reader-facing side of D2D. Any updates on this or new features in the works? And we did mention new features in terms of the payment splitting. We also have a very beautiful merchandising person who's helping to pull together promotions. Which happens to be my wife, Kara. So those are kind of new, and there's a lot of traction happening there. And that's
still the author facing side of things. I think the reader side is books to read, which I know Mark has spent a lot of time this last few months coming up with some plans for that are really reader focused. We are working on supporting audiobooks better in the near future. I don't know if we have anything coming out this year, but next year, there's going to be a lot of focus on that.
Yeah, there's a lot of work involved in doing this properly, because what you guys want and need is you need another way for people to discover your amazing books that you're producing. And that's kind of what we're driving at, is focusing on how do we solve that problem to help the right reader find the right book to read using books to read.
We do have things in the works in the background that are meant to build that reader-facing side. So it's not something that's just sitting there lying fallow. We actually do have things in progress. So nothing we can reveal. That's my teaser. You just have to keep coming back to these every week to find out more. So Charlie Marsh asks, I've been hearing that free first in series is no longer working, and I'm hearing that it is, since you folks get to see a lot of authors. What are you seeing from this marketing technique? I have some opinions on this.
It's been as strong as ever from my perspective.
Yeah. So
I think
really
it doesn't work
depends.
well on Amazon anymore, and people frequently talk about Amazon as the only game in town, and
That's
it's
what I was
not.
going to say.
Yeah, Free First Series works great at all the other retailers. It's just there are so many books on Amazon, and when you've got a lot of readers subscribed to something like KU, where in effect a book looks free to them, that takes the power magic out of Free First and Series.
Yeah.
And so
And Apple is actually
try it wide. Yeah.
Yeah, Apple's been telling us that they are seeing a lot of traction on First and Series free. So that's a good market. I mean, I think there's a second biggest U.S. market at least.
Second biggest digital retailer of books, like selling digital books. Yeah.
Yeah. So it does work. So the only caveat is that the big giant everyone always falls back on is starting to see some slippage. So. David asks, what's the typical wait time once I publish the DVD for retailers to make it available?
It varies a little bit with the big guys like Apple and Kobo and Barnes and Noble. It's typically like within a few hours it goes up depending on what time it's submitted. Like overnight, sometimes it might wait for someone to be able to review it, but it's pretty quick. Library systems weren't designed for like the speed of retailers, and so the library systems take a little bit longer. Right. Some of them can take up to a week. Some of the international retailers are smaller, and so some of them take like a week or two. But that's to get a book up. Getting books down, we generally make in our agreements, we make people get books down within a few days, and so that part goes quick. Price changes go quick. But getting a book up initially is going to vary from a few hours to, I would say 2 weeks would be the longest. That being said, the Barnes & Noble problem right now, it's been about 2 weeks since we've been able to publish a new book to Barnes & Noble. Right. They've got people working around the clock on it, but they had to work on getting their website back up so they could sell books. They had to work on making sure people get access to the library books they've already bought. So they're working through a lot of issues due to the issues they had.
Yeah.
And Hopeless still working through a bit of a backlog too, right? So that's not as quick.
Yeah, I mean, I think
it will be eventually.
Yeah, we're going to see kind of a delay with Barnes & Noble for probably a couple of months to come, just because they're a popular retailer to distribute to anyway. So that catalog's got to be backing up. So Diana asks, is there a way to have the book open to a page before chapter 1? I use DDD to format my books, but if I put sign-up links for newsletters in the front and my dedication, etc., the books don't open on those pages.
I think the retailers control that, and so each different retailer has different options, and generally their app or the settings on the e-reader will let readers choose like where they want it to open.
Yeah.
I believe there's a trick with Amazon to tell them open on this page unless the reader told you otherwise, but I'm not sure.
Right. Yeah. Most of them default to chapter 1 though. It's not really under our control. And
I read on Kobo. I've never had that happen. It just opens on the very first page of the book and you're good to go.
Aren't you special?
Yeah, I know. We have a really good, awesome reader
here. Let's see. Can you discuss pricing ebooks and audiobooks to libraries?
Yes, we can.
We can.
Typically, so libraries, and I think Kathleen also asked if Overdrive's the only way. No, it's not. We have 5 different library distributor platforms that we work with: Baker and Taylor, Overdrive, Hoopla, Adillo, Biblioteca, and more to come. The reason why you want to price your ebook, your library price a little bit higher for ebooks and audiobooks is usually with the licensing a lot of libraries use is they buy a copy of the book and then they can loan it forever to one patron at a time. So because they're loaning it over and over again, instead of charging, let's say you're charging $4.99 retail US for your ebook, maybe you want to price the library version of that book $9.99 or $14.99. Could be somewhere in that range. It depends on the content, the genre, and then that way they buy it and they're getting more for their value because they get to use it again. Or in the cost per checkout model, which many of our library platforms use as well, is that's like 1/10 of the price. So if you set it at $10, you'd make $1 rather than just under $5 on that $10 book. So that's why pricing your ebooks to the library channel is a little bit higher, because libraries for traditionally published books are used to spending anywhere from $30 to $50 to $80 to $150 when they buy their ebooks from a major Random House or Simon & Schuster or one of those major publishers. And they also expire. So let's say after 30 people have checked it out, they have to buy another copy. So you're not ripping off the library if you do charge $10 for an ebook when your normal ebook prices are half of that. You're actually still giving them a really good value for your great book.
Yeah. We've got about 5 minutes left. I'm going to start kind of bouncing around in questions here. I don't want to leave anyone out if we can avoid it. But so Kathleen says, pretty stupid question. If someone orders a book through one of your affiliates, who delivers the book?
Dan, it gets on a scooter and drives it.
It would be whatever retailer they bought it off of.
Right.
So if they bought it at Apple and it was a digital book, Apple would deliver them the digital file. If it's a print book, it would be whoever they bought it from. So if they bought it from Amazon or they bought it from Barnes & Noble, then that store would deliver, have it delivered via whatever method they use.
And Kathleen had a follow-up question. How do I know what sales have been made?
So there's a reports page that you can go to every day. The big retailers all give us daily estimates the next day, and so you can see if you sold stuff the day before. Some of the retailers, especially like smaller ones, we might only get numbers monthly, and so keep that in mind. But the ones where you really care, like Apple, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, the next day you're going to find out what kind of sales you had.
Glenn Daniels asks, can you tell us about how offering a free book works? Is there a cost to the author? Where does it get listed? Is it a good way to promote other books? So we discussed some of this, but we didn't talk about whether or not there was a cost to the author. There's absolutely no cost, but some retailers won't let you list for free. So Amazon is the prime example of that. You can sometimes get Amazon to price match a book to free. And it takes contacting them via secret back channels that are very difficult to find. But if you can get in and if you actually have like a KDP account, you can sometimes sneak it in that way. They don't like to do that, but they will do it occasionally. So if you ask nicely. But if you set your book to free through our service to all the other retailers, first of all, if you distribute to Amazon through us, it'll set it at 99 cents. I believe that was the minimum, right? But if you set it for free to all the other retailers, we take care of that, and there's no charge to you. So unless you just want to pay me, and then I will send you my PayPal email address. Martinique, which I love this name, Martinique Mims. I'm gonna assume that's how it's pronounced. How do you begin to advertise or get on podcasts when you don't have a physical book and you're a first-time author? I don't know what to tell people in an email, what I can offer them if the book is not out yet. I'm in the illustration phase now. What's great about podcasts is you can, most of the time you can find an email address on the website for the podcast, whoever it is that's hosting, and just reach out and say, hey, I've got a book coming out and I'd love to talk about it. The things I would tell them are, what makes your book unique? So I've interviewed hundreds of authors, so has Mark. And on this program, we've interviewed hundreds of authors. The thing that we're looking for is that unique story, something special about the book. If we're going to be talking about your work, so something special about your backstory, maybe there's something in your history and your past that informed the book and made you need to write the book. So give them a compelling story. I mean, you're an author, weave the story for them. Tell them what they're going to be sharing with their listeners. That's my primary advice. Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, just focus on those things that you're the best person to have written this book than anyone else in the world. And so you can own that. And you can look for niche podcasts, for example, on almost any topic. So if your main character happens to be, a world-renowned knitter, Maybe this is something that goes on a knitting podcast. It doesn't necessarily, like, you can go right down to whatever niche, whatever specialty, the illustrator, whatever, right? Any of those focuses. So the beautiful thing about podcasts is there's a podcast for almost any unique pastime, passion, hobby, and people from those podcasts would probably want to hear that story that you have to tell, or that your character has to tell, or whatever it is that makes you and your book unique.
Yep. Okay, last
I
question.
feel like I might, just real quick on that, I feel like I might wait until you have something to sell, because beforehand, people might hear your story and really love it, but if they can't act immediately, like we're all so busy and we get distracted, maybe that is a pre-order, like putting it up for pre-order. But I would wait until you get to that point where you have something to sell before even trying to get
that's a very good
interviewed.
Point.
Yeah.
Have a call to action that they can immediately act on, because otherwise there's no point
with a newsletter.
The newsletter is always. So last question, and then we got to wrap up. Raksha asks, should our book be priced the same as library auto price? I'm interpreting that, by the way, as should the retail price match the library price, but I may be wrong about that.
And we kind of touched on that earlier, but it should be higher. Just because the library is going to loan it out multiple times. Traditional publishers are charging considerably more, like Mark mentioned, like $30 to $100. That's what traditional traditional publishers are charging libraries. And so you want to go up. We generally are recommending like 2 to 3 times the retail list price. But I know people that are charging like $19.99, $29.99. Just kind of up to you, but it's nice that you have that option. Like you don't have to worry about price matching or anything. It's just for library systems that's being charged.
And that said, I think it's time we go ahead and wrap up. We didn't mention this earlier, so I want to pop this up now. We actually have a promo going on right now with Apple's Winter's Most Anticipated. So I believe this is for, Mark, you know the specific details. This is for like pre-orders?
Yeah, this is for pre-orders. So if you are an author ahead and you have a book coming out, I believe it's between the 1st of December and the end of February, you can submit it to nominate so that we can present it to Apple and say, hey, it's in this genre, and there's a place where you can say, why is this most anticipated? Maybe it's a new book in a series, maybe it's a spin-off book, maybe it's something that's just hot and everyone's looking for. And that's just one of the great promos that we're constantly trying to get for our authors.
Yeah, and I just put that link itself in the comments, so you can just click through and go. And now the caveats here are the book has to be distributed through us and to Apple. So if you've just got a book on Amazon or something, sorry, you don't get to play. So I think that's going to have to wrap us up, guys. This has been a really good one. We've had quite a few people pop in.
Lots of questions.
So. Yeah, we need to probably do these more often. So thank you so much to everyone who did tune in. If you are not already, you should subscribe to us on YouTube. You can go in on Facebook. You can go to youtube.com/draftedigital and facebook.com/draftedigital. Imagine that. You might also want to bookmark D2D Live, because that's where we actually have a little countdown meter for this live broadcast. So typically we do a couple of these a month. So if you go and bookmark that page and check back often, you'll be able to drop in on us. And make sure you start your self-publishing career at draftedigital.com. That was a streamer. That one didn't show up as easy. And finally, selfpublishinginsiders.com is where you're going to find all these back interviews, episodes, AUAs, all that stuff. In a blog format, so you can read transcripts, you can watch the video, you can listen in on the podcast, and of course, listen to the Self-Publishing Insiders podcast wherever fine podcasts are sold. And we really appreciate you taking the time, spending this time with us, and take care, everybody.
Bye, everyone.